So Mercedes have decided that they're going to scrap the W14. Big statement from Toto Wolff immediately after the Bahrain qualifying. Somewhat surprisingly, has already said that they will be dropping the concept and need to think of a new radical and take a new radical approach. After a long hard winter of working on the car and upgrading what was a dogged W14 and sticking with the concept throughout the whole winter, Mercedes, after one qualifying session at the start of 2023, has said, we're going a different route. Why is it taking you the whole of winter to get to this point? Tell me, someone, it's unreal. How can it be that bad? How did you not realize? Did the concept or the sims not tell you that it's going to be awful? Wow. Big news, massive disappointment for Mercedes fans, someone like myself also. But let's have a moment of silence for Mercedes. I can't do a laugh. What were they doing? Unreal. Honestly, I'm in shock. Now, I didn't expect them to be right up there at the front, leading the way, but I think Mercedes expected them to be a lot closer. They're exactly the same distance behind as they were last season. They were 6/10 behind the Red Bulls in qualifying, both Lewis and George. With them being both so close together, it feels like they pretty much extracted the best what they could give out of the car, which is normally an indication when both teams or drivers are really quite close up to each other. And it's just where they are. But why the big difference from this season to last season? Well, last season they were in the hope that they knew they had massive issues with the porpoising and the bouncing down the straight. And they knew once they fixed that, fundamentally they should have some huge amounts of downforce. They just needed to find it with that old car. And they were proven right to some extent. They, despite being sort of at one point sort of 2 seconds off the pace, they went ahead and won in Brazil with that car. And towards the end, their performances were really quite good. And I think Toto was led to this and said, look, maybe we were just led down the wrong path with these positive results towards the end of the season. Maybe them circuits just suited our car, and gave us an idea that, this is a concept we can stick with potentially. There's some performance within this car, and fixing the big issues that they had, they could fight for the title by sticking with the concept. And I think that's why they did that over the winter. But it's strange, they came out literally straight after qualifying, so far back, and even with it such a radical response as compared to last year, they've just thrown up the white flag and said, look, we need to really drastically change this concept. We need to be more radical in the concept, and they don't think this concept of the no pods is really going to take them to the front now. Normally it's strange because you'd normally would wait to see, like, is this just circuit specific or what? You'd normally wait a couple more races before coming out with that. But I think the problem is that they've said that, look, this is the best that they can do. Over the winter, they hit all the markers. The car is what it is. It's doing what they expected, but they expected it to be a lot closer than 6/10 behind the Red Bulls. So fundamentally, there's not an awful lot more that they think they can do with it, really, which is why I think they've just gone so early and said, look, we need to change this. We can't carry on with it. They feel like they probably thought they'd done such a big job over the winter, such a radical change, and it's left them almost in the same position they were last year. And I don't think they feel like they don't know where they can unlock this further time without investing a lot more. Now they've got a big upgrade coming for Imola, but that is only going to push them sort of potentially 3/10 closer to Red Bulls, and the Red Bulls and Ferraris and now the Aston Martin aren't going to sit still. You know, they'll be bringing performance upgrades also, so you know, the gap may remain the same through that time. I think the other issue that they've got is that Aston Martin, who use the same power unit, gearbox and rear suspension as them, ahead of them, and that gives them some clear answers about the W14, and I think that's the key difference this year. You know, Aston Martin gained 2 seconds or 2.5 seconds in a year, which is massive, and their car is like I said, it's half of Mercedes. It's, you know, they've got the same engine, gearbox and rear suspension. They use the same wind tunnel, so there's a lot of parallels that they can take from that, and they've just got to say, look, it's not a mechanical issue. If it was mechanical or suspension, you know, the weaknesses, if that's where it was, Aston Martin should have them too. They use the same parts, and I think that's where they know they just don't generate enough downforce with this new car, and that's why they're having to scrap it. I mean, it was quite clear that it was in turns 5, 6 and 7, the really high speed corners in Bahrain was where they lost all their time. They weren't too bad down the straights, and they've generally been alright in the slow corners anyway. And their old car was good in them scenarios, but it's in the high speed corners where Red Bull have sort of said they were almost 1G more they could lean on the car in them fast corners compared to Mercedes, which is significant. In title battles, you can't be losing that amount to your rivals, and I think that's what's prompted them to go down a completely different route. The big dilemma here really is, though, where do they draw the line with this? Now we've got this big upgrade coming in Imola. Do they stop that now in its track and just say, look, we'll abandon work on this car completely, and they work on a new concept from now? Or do they bring the upgrades and see what comes of it, and that might help them to understand what route to take? But in the cost cap era, it's difficult. You can't build a B concept as well as fundamentally change the car that you've got in front of you now. You know, there's just not the budget there for them to do that. So for me personally, if I was there, it's a big decision for Toto to take. Which route does he go down? But it's literally what do you do? Do you flog a dead horse, or just completely scrap the idea? And if I was in their shoes and they know that this is not the car that they want to go down, well, clearly they'll have time now to just write off this season, try and find the right concept and put all their energies into that. Hopefully by the end of the year they can produce this new concept this season. They'll race it, and they'll get some data from that, and then take that into the winter and hopefully bridge that gap a lot closer to the Red Bulls and the Aston Martins. And I think it's the Aston Martins who have really pushed Mercedes to sort of say, look, we've gone the wrong route here. But big decisions to make for Toto. It looks like that's the end of their championship campaign. If you see in my predictions video, I had them as constructors and drivers championships. With statements like that definitely won't be happening unless something radical just pops out and they find the magic answer. It's happened before, but I wouldn't bet on it. Let's see what happens. Thanks very much for watching. Please like, subscribe and comment. I'll see you in the next video.